Here we are for episode 8 of The Journey. The extremely conscious man story.
This is correct.
I thought we were recording our intro there.
I should have shut up is what you're saying, right? Not only is this man ridiculously good looking, as we were just saying that like the streaming quality can't even keep up with it. The voice too. Yeah, it's just, people are hiring him all around the world just for that voice. So it's a face for TV and a voice for radio.
Trev
Incredible.
gets the hand modeling gigs, and I get the voiceovers.
These are pretty lush. There hasn't been a lot of physical labor on these hands for many, many years. That was by choice too, I might say. I remember leaning on the shovel when I was 18 to 24 years old and thinking, I don't think I can do this for the next 30 years. Yeah.
No, I had a couple landscaping gigs that were just like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And still my shelf hanging skills aren't as strong as they could have been, but sometimes you go for what works.
This is how we can tell we're living parallel lives, man, is that I know if something happens in your world, it's about to happen in mine and vice versa, because for anybody that's not aware, my son ripped a shelf off the wall at school the other day, and then today, exact same thing.
This morning. Yep, he was leaning on that, and off it went at 7:30 in the morning. But we digress. For anybody joining us for the first time, this is the Extremely Conscious Man story, the story how Trev and I initially met. We bridged a gap of just, beers and sports talk, and we got a little bit deeper on real conversations and leaning into spirituality, and how we both wanted to create a retreat, and some of the things we did, and the trials and tribulations and all the fun in between. So last episode, we talked a little bit about the retreat itself. We've come to our first retreat, and some pieces on that. And then Trev, why don't you lead us off on kind of what happened? We just jammed on it a little bit, but on how the retreat led off and where we went from there.
Totally. So we did address a bit about the retreat in the last one, even though we didn't title it based on that. So we'll maybe recap it, but pulling together that retreat in 6 weeks was quite a task for both of us. We just leaned in and said, let's just go figure it out. And we did. We executed on it. And we had 8 guys show up, and we picked this amazing venue just outside the city in Kelowna. So it was easy access for everybody. Some guys were coming from Vancouver, I think was the furthest that they had come from. Or no, Victoria
island.
Even too.
The island, yeah.
Yeah, and we did enough prep work with wine barrels that had to have tops cut off, and a big mobile sauna that had to be rolled in, and the barrels filled with ice and all of that stuff, and bring the e-foils out, and then just figure out the logistics of how to get around. In fact, I hadn't even thought about this until now, but we were looking at Google Maps on how to get to the trail that we wanted to go and hike, and we massively underestimated what it was going to take the back roads. Yes. And we ended up on these mountain roads that were way up in the sky and pretty windy. That was part of the adventure in itself too, wasn't it?
Yeah. We thought it was a pretty straight shot through to Myra Canyon. Then we had this combine of cars stop and chat about it. I remember one of them went back and 2 went forward, but we got there. We all got there eventually and had an amazing experience. But we learned. And
that was the thing I think we wanted to pick up on was, we titled this one, The First Retreat, Intentions, Commitments, and Ordinary Outcomes. So we said right from the start of this series, too, that we would tell the truth and speak about what this journey's been like. And the intentions part is exactly what we just said. We were going to pull together this event that you and I would go do regardless if anybody even showed up. And naturally, we had some expenses related to it because we had planned for upwards of 8 to 10 guys to show up. So I'm not sure you and I would have went on a $10,000 weekend on our own, because I think that was roughly what our budget was for that one. But that was the intention, and those guys showed up, and the experience was great. And we have numerous videos, testimonials of the guys arriving and stating their expectations, which most of it was, I don't even know exactly what to expect, but I'm open to it and I'm just curious, you know? And then we walked away even too with some commitments based on the experiences that we had and the conversations that we had and some of the aha moments. It was a little bit different for everybody. But then the follow-up on that was somewhat disappointing, I guess you would even say. And not in a completely negative way, but we didn't even realize it until months later, which of course we'll talk more about what we did at the latter part of 2022. But let's maybe just speak about that part, Mike, like the exiting of that retreat and even what it felt like as we were all leaving the building.
Oh, it was momentous at the end, right? Our last day, we had formed new bonds, incredible bonds of, you know, these guys that came together on a Friday and most barely knew each other. And we had all had deep conversations. We had shared amazing experiences, eaten good food and laughed and had everything you can think of in what felt like a couple weeks was a few days. So of course we had the best of intentions leaving. We were all on a high, but the reality is we all went back to our regular lives and our old habits and our patterns. And we hadn't evolved to the stage, you and I, with knowing what was next. We thought, cool, let's do this retreat. And it was so impactful. And so, yeah, for a good 2-3 weeks following, we were all super active, chatting, sharing videos, sharing pictures, and asking some great questions. And how did you have that chat with your wife, you know, or your employees, or did you implement this that we talked about? And it was there for a little while. And I think we branched off in groups almost too amongst the smaller groups. And some of us have kept in touch pretty decently, but overall reflecting, you know, you and I were going through some stuff as well. And you were getting ready to move the family to Costa Rica. So we had made an agreement even amongst ourselves that we need to give each other a bit of space because you had to focus on that. And, but once we had an opportunity once you landed essentially, and I gave you that couple weeks grace and we reconnected and the dust had settled from all that, it really gave us an opportunity to reflect on everything. And that's when we really identified what was a gap. We identified two things, I'll say, and then I'll let you ramble. But one, we identified this is something we wanted to commit even further to. The power of that weekend, the process of it all, the learnings both from the process and internally that we had in the work we were doing was absolutely incredible. And the second piece that we knew we wanted to do more and we wanted to look at where we could be better. And we committed to that. And then I'll let you carry it away, but we got on a call and we started to discuss it.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that come to mind related to this too. One is, I'll speak from my own experience. If I have been inspired in the past to create change in my life, I might pick up a book. And I remember in our past even too, where, you know, you would recommend a book for me. In fact, I got one of them right here, The Artist's Way. That was one of the books that you gave me around that time. And that creates a bit of a dopamine rush of like, okay, now I got the book. All I got to do is read the book. No, that's not all you need to do. Or whatever it is. I think you said it on the last live that we did. You joined the program. Okay, I've done it. I did it. I joined the program. I spent the money. I got the gym membership. I booked the trip, whatever the case might be. But those are actually just commitment pieces. It's everything else after that. And the second piece too, and I was just pulling it up on our website, because on the Inner Circle page, I actually just put a graphic up there recently that speaks to this cycle of how do we create ways of being that actually last, like that become truly who we are and not fragmented. And it really is intention followed by truth and ownership, which really is an acceptance of like, this is my reality and I own this. You know, I created all of this because if you don't own that part of it, you're going to find ways to blame or excuses or, oh, geez, I was busy. You know, I was moving my family to Costa Rica. I don't got time to maintain all of this stuff that we said that we were going to do. Great intention, immediately broken on the truth and ownership, because that's all a story too. And then, of course, the behaviors have to shift. So like, what is the behavior that I have to shift? You got to get clear on it and define it, followed by consistent practice. So there has to be a consistency to it, especially when you don't want to do it. That's when you got to show up. And that's when the habits start to take shape. And when the habits start to take shape, you can start to see ways to exponentially expand time and to, I don't even like to use the word hack, but to combine things. For example, you know, for me, I've found recently that I know I want to get out into nature at least 10 minutes a day. I know I want to get into the ocean. I know I don't want to spend quality time with my kids. I know I want to get sunshine on my face. Well, if I just choose to walk to get my kids instead of driving, I'm knocking off 3 of those things in 30 minutes, because by the time it takes me to walk there, pick them up and walk home, I've now accomplished these things. And you do that enough times and it becomes ways of being, where when it comes time to pick up the kids, you don't even look for the keys, or I don't even look for the keys. I just put my shoes on and I walk out the back door. And that was what was missing when we exited that last retreat. There was great intention. There was an element of truth and ownership, and we actually dug deep in some conversations on that, on the last day in particular. But the behaviors and the practices didn't match, because we just weren't there yet either. We weren't thinking ahead and setting ourselves up to win.
No, absolutely. It was the integration piece, and you said it. We even, you know, we spoke it out loud. We all, going into the weekend, we even signed an agreement, our oath, right? And leaving, we spoke it out loud, or what our intentions were, but we had nothing to really help as a guide, or there was no real check-ins, right?
The accountability.
Or the accountability piece, or what those actions were. Great, we wanted to keep these things going, these conversations happening, but what are the steps? What are the micro actions or the habits that we want to build, right? And so this is where we had the opportunity to reflect, exactly, and look forward. And this is where our next stage was born, called the Inner Circle. And you know, we'll dive into that more as we get more into these the journeys and the videos. But we looked at that integration piece, and we saw the gap and said, this is what was missing, is to have not only lay a foundation now for these retreats, if this is going to be what we're committing to, but we need the integration following, because the reality is we can't be in person every day. We can't feel that energy that is real, that we all share when we are together. We don't have the supportive hugs and pat on our backs and you know, advice that we are able to give each other in person. That's just not possible to have every single day. So these integration pieces, this foundation that we build, is so important, and we've seen the power of it already unfold in what we've created. And then the integration, I have no doubt, is going to be just as incredible, because it creates a ripple effect, right? It's not just the men's lives that we are helping transform and our own, but it's everybody that they interact with. It's an energy, it's a light, and it's, you know, those that are leading teams, those that have families, all of those pieces. It's been incredible to see, and we're not even at the next retreat yet.
Yeah, there's another important piece that I want people to take away from this too, and that is, we're reflecting on this and telling the truth. And I want to say out loud that there's no regrets to how any of this actually transpired, and how we might look back at it and see that there was ordinary outcomes as we exited that first retreat. We just see it as imperfect action, because this is also something that I think a lot of men in particular are paralyzed by, and that is, unless I can do it perfectly and know all the answers before I even step into that ring, I'm not even going to start. And what we've proven here with this is that you just need to start, and you have to be willing to tell the truth or face the truth if you are starting at zero. And that's scary for a lot of people, especially when you get into your late 30s and your 40s and you think, well, I'm supposed to have this all figured out by now. In fact, we were just talking about that with Will Ripley one of the guys in our inner circle, just reflecting on the fact that all of us have almost 20 years of corporate experience now, corporate, entrepreneurship, whatever, like working experience. And we have 5 to 6 years experience as dads. And we expect to be perfect at this game? No, we're just showing up and doing the best that we can and experiencing those moments where our kids rip shells off the wall and we're frustrated and sometimes we even react in ways that we're not proud of. But an older version of us would just react and then not reflect on how did I create this and what can I do to actually make sure that there's an understanding that Daddy is sorry. Daddy didn't mean to yell at you there. Daddy got frustrated, but I'm here to say I love you. And this might happen again, and it's okay if it does. I just want to remind you of that. That's what being extremely conscious is. It's not being perfect. It's just being willing to admit when you don't know or when you're wrong even, and speak the truth out loud. Take full ownership for it, which is often.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mistakes made when you start leaning in.
Yeah, and it's giving ourselves that grace too. You said it. It's acknowledging that we're not perfect, but also not getting in that spiral of being hard on ourselves when we do have that imperfect action, because that is how we learn. The second we observe that we had that, we're already ahead, because you said it. Then we can acknowledge with our kids, and then truly speaking that to our kids is just teaching them that, oh, it's okay that you got frustrated. Yeah, we can still be friends. We can still talk about this. We still love each other. We just hugged it out in a matter of minutes, and it's resolved, or it's at least dissipated, and we can both walk away loving each other. And that's incredible, because I think that's, if you look at our generation as kids, I can tell you that's something I didn't have. And I don't say that from a negative place, but I say that from, I believe our parents were doing the best they could do with the tools they were dealt and the tools they had. And that was a lot less than us prior to them and further. And, they went through, we could go on a whole conversation on this one with what a lot of our parents went through. And so we've got to have that grace for them, that forgiveness for them as well. And it's, allows us to really move forward the best dads we can be.
Yeah. And I even think, and this actually goes back to a book, again, that you gave me, which gave me some more perspective on what I could do to connect more with my kids. It was that Breathe Like a Bear book, which just has some, fun, kind of cute animated, cartoony like things that are explaining how to breathe, to regulate yourself, to recognize when you're feeling the anger and to be able to bring yourself down and calm yourself down. And Sharmila just brought another book back when she went back to Canada that's about understanding your body and the feelings that you have, like this is hungry. This is when you're feeling sick.
Yes.
And just getting the kids to talk through it. And I've really recognized just in the last couple of weeks reading that one to them as well, that all of this stuff is actually really quite simple. And as we get older, we think it needs to be more complicated. Like everything that you and I are talking about here that became these foundational pieces was basically going back to the basics, saying
100%.
We need to, we got to lift things. We got to sleep more. We got to drink more water. We got to get into nature. You got to put sun on your face. Everybody knows this, but how many people actually show up every day, especially when shit hits the fan? The shelves are getting ripped off the wall, water, power's going out, internet's not working, wife's mad at you, driveway's
even the birds'
plowed
heads are
in.
falling off.
Pets' heads are falling off. Just daily stuff.
Yeah, and that's as humans, that's what we innately do, is we complicate things. And the truth is, we have very complicated minds, and that's what attributes to it. The amount of thoughts that go through our minds in a minute. We tend to overlook the simple, right? And as we've evolved from primal beings and having connection with the earth and our food and each other, and we've created all these advancements, we just keep complicating. Right. But it is as simple as when you look at a lot of the leaders in the health and wellness space right now that are talking about how important these elements are. Right. And we've just gone our own niche, our own little path on it. But the tools are common across the board. The foundational ones that really allow us to connect and to settle and to create some clarity in our lives and connection and feel, that connection again, whether it's with our kids, our partners, our friends.
Yeah, you think of even the immediate thing I thought of is you think of the simplicity of Mel Robbins' latest book, for example, the 5-second rule. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get out of bed. Imagine if everybody did that starting tomorrow and then did it consistently for the next 30 days and then had that become a way of being. It seems really simple, and how could that possibly create change in my life? It can. Try it. And that's just one example. There's many. And that's the other thing, is that naturally we always want to stack more on. And we've been guilty of that too, and we're continuing to learn those lessons as we go. But yeah, I'm glad that we got to dig into this topic, because it was very relevant in our worlds too right now. And that's kind of the whole point of just going live and talking about this, is that we get to speak what's alive and real in our lives, because there's a lot of balls being juggled here, and some of them are bouncing and some are smashing on the ground. And we're just making sure that the ones that are smashing are not the ones that are the priorities in our life. They're the ones that can smash. And they might hurt for a little bit, but you move on, because the important things are actually being taken care of still.
Totally. And I heard a good one yesterday as well in talking about, the ones that are smashing. And that's, did you have a terrible day, or did you have a terrible 5 minutes that you dragged on for the whole day?
Yeah.
I've never heard it in that perspective, but it was very powerful, because, we have choices every minute of every day in the things that we face, and we all face similar challenges, but we choose how to respond to those challenges. And sometimes the choice is much harder to see than others, but we always have a choice.
Drop the mic, man. Mike. All right. Yeah, let's wrap on that, though, because I know we want to keep these around 20 minutes, but this was a good jam session. And if you're enjoying this, people that are watching this, I can't see if there's any comments and stuff. All this software doesn't work properly for me, or watching on the replay or whatever it is, head to extremelyconscious.com. You'll see what we're up to there, and you'll be able to find out more information on the experience we have coming up in Costa Rica as well, which is now 45-ish days away. It's crazy to think how fast that's coming. Super exciting. And we'll be releasing more information, some of the fine details that'll get people to move, because we've still got, I think, 12 or 13 seats left where we've got room for 20 people there. So we got 8 amazing guys that are committed and ready to lean in with us at this. We got, I think, 9 facilitators, a bunch of activities already pre-planned, and it's going to be magical. And on the note of how we started this whole conversation, though, too, it is going to be magical. It is going to be that lightning bolt that will jolt us, but it'll be the work that we put in between now and then how we continue on afterwards, that'll make the difference on whether or not it changes our ways of being, and ultimately how we view, the lens that we view our lives through. So,
and a month of integration is included in everybody who comes to the retreat as a part of that, because we're doing the before work, but the after is just as important, and a month is the minimum that should be done. So it's exciting. It's going to be very, very powerful. But thank you all for everybody listening. We appreciate you guys joining us for the journey, and we always appreciate feedback, comments, any of that stuff. But follow along the journey by subscribing to this channel too, or dropping us a note on what you're thinking about it. Tons of love, guys.
See you, brother.